Picture this. It's 1776. A group of farmers, lawyers, and guys who really, really hated taxes decided to take on the most powerful military empire on Earth. Their plan? Shoot at the British until they left. The British plan? Shoot back. With a professional army and a navy, and money. The colonists won. We all know this. There were fireworks. It was great. But what if they hadn't? What if one man, one tired, cold, slightly unhinged man standing on a frozen riverbank in New Jersey, had just said, "You know what? It's December. I'm going home." December 25th, 1776. The Continental Army is in ruins. Thousands of soldiers have deserted. Supplies are gone. Men are wrapping their feet in rags because they have no boots. George Washington has roughly 2,400 men. Half are sick. The other half are cold. A fair number are both. His soldiers' enlistment contracts expire on January 1st. That's 1 week away. If he doesn't do something dramatic right now, there is no army, no revolution, no America. So Washington calls a meeting. "Gentlemen," he says, "we're crossing the Delaware River tonight in a blizzard." General John Sullivan raises his hand. "Sir, my men's ammunition is wet from the rain." Washington stares at him. "Tell them to use their bayonets." "We don't have enough bayonets." "Then tell them to look threatening." Now here's the actual history. Washington crossed, in a blizzard, at night, in small wooden boats, with horses and cannons. They marched 9 miles through a snowstorm and attacked the Hessian garrison at Trenton at 8 in the morning. The Hessians, German mercenaries hired by the British, were asleep. The battle took 45 minutes. The Americans took 900 prisoners without losing a single man in combat. The revolution had a pulse again. France started paying attention. The whole thing kept going. But here's where our story splits. There was one man on the other side who could have ended all of this before the crossing ever happened. His name was General William Howe. William Howe was the British commander in North America. He was competent. He had beaten Washington multiple times. In the fall of 1776, Howe had Washington completely on the run. He'd pushed the Continental Army out of New York, chased them across New Jersey, and had them cornered with a disintegrating force and no supplies. And then he stopped. He looked at his calendar, saw it was almost winter, and decided that was quite enough fighting for 1 year. He went back to New York to throw parties and spend time with his girlfriend, who was, awkwardly, the wife of a loyalist officer he was supposed to be protecting. This is historically documented. His second in command, Lord Cornwallis, had his bags packed to go home to England. They were that confident the war was basically over. But in our story, Howe makes a different call. It's November 20th, 1776, alternate timeline. Howe calls his officers together. "Gentlemen, we are going to end this before Christmas." One officer leans toward another. "But sir, the weather, the Americans," Howe interrupts, "are wearing rags on their feet. I think we can manage." Cornwallis puts his bags back in the closet. The British push south through New Jersey, fast. Washington's army, already falling apart, completely dissolves. Men don't just desert, they go home and take their muskets for hunting. Washington gets across the Delaware. He has maybe 1,200 men left. Howe crosses right behind him. Washington sends a desperate letter to the Continental Congress. The Continental Congress, currently in Philadelphia, reads the letter, then reads it again. Should we leave? They leave, for Baltimore, which takes 2 days because the roads are terrible and it's raining. Meanwhile, Benjamin Franklin is in Paris, charming French aristocrats into supporting the revolution. He gets a letter. He reads it. He orders a large glass of wine. Then he goes to tell Foreign Minister Vergennes that America will not be needing that military alliance after all. Vergennes says, "We noticed. By spring of 1777, it's over. Not with a dramatic last stand. The Continental Army just stops existing because the men went home." Washington retreats to his farm at Mount Vernon. He is extremely angry for the rest of his life. Britain wins, but winning is complicated. What do you do with 13 colonies that spent 2 years trying to kill your soldiers and wrote a very eloquent document calling your king a tyrant? King George III wants to punish everyone. His prime minister, Lord North, who has aged 15 years in 2, sits down with the king. "Your Majesty, we could execute the ringleaders." "Yes." "We could raise taxes dramatically on the colonists." "Also yes." Or, North says carefully, "we could try not to make this worse." George stares at him. "Fine, but I want Franklin arrested." Franklin, still in Paris, hears about this through a contact. He does not go back. He stays in Paris. He is, by all accounts, completely fine with this. Here's the twist that changes everything. In real history, France joined the American Revolution in 1778. They sent soldiers, ships, and money. They helped win the war. Then they went completely bankrupt doing it. That bankruptcy was a major cause of the French Revolution in 1789. In our timeline, France never joins the war. They're still broke. Louis XVI is bad with money regardless, but not quite as broke. The French Revolution still happens. The inequality is still extreme. The system is still broken, but it happens without the ideological fuel of, look, the Americans did it and it worked. The French revolutionaries are making everything up entirely as they go. It's messier, more violent, even more chaotic. Napoleon still rises, probably faster, because there's more chaos. Here's the funny part. In real history, Napoleon couldn't hold on to Louisiana, so he sold it to the United States for $15 million. Jefferson called it the greatest real estate deal in history. In our timeline, there is no United States to sell it to, so Napoleon just keeps Louisiana. He sends 30,000 French troops. They dig in. Louisiana becomes a real French colony, French-speaking, French-cultured, and a permanent headache for the British colonies to the north. The city of New Orleans becomes effectively a French city on the North American continent, which it always kinda was, but now it's extremely French. Beret-wearing, wine-drinking, refusing to speak English-French. By 1850, North America looks nothing like what we know. You have British colonies along the East Coast, not a unified country, just a collection of territories, each with different rules and different amounts of resentment toward London. You have French Louisiana in the middle, which Napoleon's successors are holding together with political duct tape. And you have Spanish Mexico to the south and west, which is having its own independence crisis. Here's the dark part. In real history, the Declaration of Independence included the line that all men are created equal. America took almost 90 more years and a civil war to begin taking that seriously. But the idea existed. Abolitionists could point to it. It created pressure. In our timeline, that document is treason. It never got published. The contradiction was never written down. Without that pressure, slavery in the British colonies doesn't just continue, it expands. The plantation economy grows unchallenged. Emancipation gets pushed back by decades. It's just bad. Back in London, Parliament has been debating what to do with the colonies for 50 years. Edmund Burke, who in real history argued for reconciliation before the war, stands up and gives a speech. Gentlemen, perhaps, and I want you to really sit with this, perhaps we should give them some actual representation. Parliament argues about it for 6 years. They give the colonies observer seats, not voting seats. Observer seats. The colonists write furious pamphlets. By the 1890s, the British colonies have been pushing for real self-governance for 100 years. In 1901, colonial assemblies meet in Philadelphia, of all places, and issue a document. It's called the Philadelphia Declaration. It's written by a lawyer from Virginia whose great-great-grandfather was Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson IV doesn't write anything as poetic as the original. He's a lawyer in 1901, working within a very different tradition. He writes something long and legal that nobody remembers word for word. It's not as catchy as the original, but it works. Britain, exhausted from empire management, looks at the document and says, essentially, fine, yes, please stop writing pamphlets. By 1905, the British North American territories become the Dominion of America. Think Canada, but angrier and further south, the capital's Philadelphia. George Washington's face is not on anything. George Washington died in 1799 at Mount Vernon, farming, still angry, waiting for something that never came. Let's talk about what happens when there's no American superpower to save everyone. World War I breaks out in 1914. Same reasons, same web of alliances, same unlucky Archduke getting shot in Sarajevo. Franz Ferdinand's assassin fires a shot. Franz Ferdinand's driver takes a wrong turn. Franz Ferdinand says, again, he gets shot anyway. Europe explodes. Now here's the difference. In real history, America entered World War I in 1917 and tipped the balance completely. Fresh troops, fresh money, fresh weapons. The Allies were exhausted. America basically dragged them over the finish line. In our timeline, the Dominion of America exists, but it's a mid-sized British territory. It sends some troops as part of the Commonwealth, maybe 80,000 men, not 2 million. Without that flood of American reinforcements, the Western Front stays a stalemate for another 2 years. Germany doesn't lose. Germany negotiates. In 1919, there's a peace conference, not a humiliating surrender, a handshake. Germany keeps most of its territory, no war reparations, no crushing debt, no hyperinflation, no desperate, humiliated population looking for someone to blame. No Hitler, no Nazi party. This is genuinely the best outcome of this entire timeline, but here's where it gets complicated. Germany, undefeated and confident, spends the next 20 years expanding economically and militarily. By 1935, Germany and Japan, who have their own imperial ambitions across Asia, are the two most aggressive powers on the planet. Britain is stretched thin, managing a global empire with no American counterweight. We may have a Germany problem, says the British Foreign Secretary, and a Japan problem, says his assistant. How bad? The assistant slides a map across the table. They've been having lunch together. In Asia, without American power, the Philippines never gets taken from Spain by the US in 1898. Instead, Britain absorbs it quietly in the early 1900s. Same with Guam. The Pacific becomes a British lake until Japan decides it shouldn't be. Japan, emboldened and unchecked, moves aggressively through China, Korea, and Southeast Asia through the 1930s. There's no American embargo cutting off their oil supply. No American navy in the Pacific large enough to threaten them. Japan and Germany don't formally carve up the world, but informally, Germany dominates Europe and North Africa. Japan dominates East Asia and the Pacific. Britain is fighting both simultaneously and losing ground on both fronts. The Second World War, which starts around 1940, is Britain's war to survive. Not win, survive. And they nearly don't. What saves them? The Soviet Union, of all things. The Russians and Germans inevitably fall out. Some things are just inevitable, and Germany finds itself fighting east and west at once. It ends in 1947, messy, exhausted. No clean victory for anyone. Britain survives, barely. Germany and the Soviet Union stare at each other across a divided Europe for the next 50 years. Japan keeps the Philippines. Nobody is happy about any of it. The internet happens eventually, just slower. 3 incompatible versions, British, French, and Dominion. There is a summit in 1987 to connect them. It lasts 3 weeks. Nothing is resolved. And William Howe goes back to London, gets criticized by Parliament for not ending the war fast enough, which is incredible, and retires to the English countryside. He is completely unaware that in one timeline, his laziness accidentally created the most powerful country in human history. He's just glad the dinner parties were good. This pheasant is amazing. Indeed,